Welcome, everybody. We're here again with another Research Talk Qualitative Conversations. Our guest today is Sharron Docherty. We will have her introduce herself in a little bit. I'm Ray Mayetta, President of Research Talk, and also with me is Jeff Petrozelli. Jeff, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeff Petrozelli. I'm a qualitative research specialist with Research Talk, and I've been here since 2001.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. So Sharron is teaching a course which she sought for us quite a lot, Writing Effective Qualitative and Mixed Methods Research Proposals. You can learn more about that on our website. We'll close this recording with a slide that'll give you more information about how to learn more about the course, how to register. But today we're just going to walk through and have a conversation with Sharron about that course. And actually, Sharron, if you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and kind of how you came to the pathway of teaching this course, and we'll just go from there and do a little back and forth.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm happy to be here. My name's Sharron, and I'm the Vice Dean for Research at the Duke University School of Nursing and an associate professor there. I've been at Duke University for, well, over 20 years now, and came to Duke I was at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill before that, where I did my PhD and taught for a couple of years, and was mentored by Margaret Sandalowski, who I'm sure many of you have heard of in your work, your qualitative work. So how I came to be teaching with Research Talk is through actually my relationship with Margie, and as with her as my mentor. She used to offer a qualitative summer institute that she did with Odom at UNC. And when I was a doctoral student there, I started out just as her sort of teaching assistant, or we used to call it camp counselor, because we would have qualitative camp. And then over the years, started to take on more of a role in partnering with Margie. And then once I graduated and moved down the road to Duke University, I started to actually take on more of the coordinator role of teaching qualitative summer institutes for the Odom Institute at UNC. Looks like I might have paused there. Yeah, so I've been writing qualitative and mixed methods research proposals for over 20 years now. And so it's one of the areas that I'm really passionate about. I've seen a lot of changes in what needs to go into a research proposal. And so I enjoy teaching this topic to share some of my experiences related to that.
Wonderful. So when you think about the course in particular, is there kind of something you can highlight that if somebody was wondering, what am I getting if I take this course? So if someone spends the 2 days with you, do you have a highlight that, you know?
Yeah, I would say that my sort of go-to with this course is it's a very pragmatic course. It's really focused on the how-to. How do you write an effective and qualitative and mixed methods research proposal that's likely to be successful? And so it's really pragmatic. We go through stage by stage the different portions of the research proposal, and I spend a lot of time talking about what are the common pitfalls that come around when we are trying to articulate what it is we want to do, and how can we effectively articulate what it is we want to do. And so I give a lot of examples of how to say things in a very succinct but powerful way. So I would say that's it, Ray, is it just really focused on the pragmatics of writing a research proposal. And while I focus on the standard style or format of research proposal that is required by the National Institutes of Health, this type of research proposal does work for any institute or federal, whether you're applying for research grants through federal governments in Canada or areas in Europe, and also foundation grants. Most of them take the formatting of the National Institutes of Health as a guideline. And so Like I said, while I use the stage by stage of the NIH type style proposal, it will really work well for any institution that you are applying for research funding to.
Great. So, one of the things with your experience with this is not just your experience in teaching directly in our environment, but also just with your, career over the years, you've done your own, you've seen other people do them. When you've seen people kind of carry through and start their first proposal and submit it and then kind of work through, what would you say kind of are the things that people start to pick up that aren't necessarily in that list of pragmatic, factors? But is there some kind of I don't know why the expression secret sauce is in my head, but is there
Yeah.
some kind of a quality that you see people kind of getting more comfortable with and gaining, getting stronger with over the course of?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's such a good question, right? I would say there's two things. The first is when we see novice grant writers starting out, we tend to use a lot of jargon and a lot of sort of philosophy and include a lot of sort of citations from general methods textbooks to show that we have a lot of knowledge of qualitative methods and we have a lot of knowledge of mixed methods. And what I like to work with students at all levels, people writing proposals across all levels, is to reduce the amount of jargon that you have in a proposal and instead to state very clearly what it is you want to do to address your research aims, what it is you want to do, and how the reviewers can be sure that you're the right person to do that. And so really taking the focus off being a methods expert and instead just stating very clearly what it is you want to do in very clear words. And that leads itself into the second sort of major piece, and that is I love helping researchers when they're writing these proposals to feel free to be really creative in how and what it is how they want to design their study and what it is they want to do. I think again we get through our educational programs and workshops we take, we really get inundated with a lot of methodological how to and what you have to say and who you have to cite. And we get really caught up in all of the different like categories of types of mixed methods. And you have to make sure you have the right, typology and what I try to do is reduce some of the focus on that and instead help researchers become more flexible with being creative with what it is they want to do and then how do you say that in a way that grant reviewers are going to understand. So I would say those are the two things: reducing the amount of jargon, and number two, being creative and flexible and open to stating what it is you really want to do with your research proposal.
So when we think about those 2 points you just mentioned, the kind of lessening the jargon and creativity, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about folks we've seen in the seat of proposals. I guess I have to do them. How easily does talking in this de-jargoned language come to folks? And I know for you, you've worked with folks early career, mid-career. So I guess maybe if we just focus that question for the early career individuals, what do you see? Is that something that do they struggle to get there?
Yes, yes. I think it's most challenging for the early career because they're, just coming off of taking some courses and reading a lot and feeling that level of I want to be able to show the reviewer that I know my stuff. And so it's really hard for them to back away from that and instead of focusing on teaching the reviewer what it is instead saying what it is you would like to do and how those pieces work together. So I would say that for the earlier career researcher, it's harder to be able to relax and to back off, and particularly in the design section, having so much jargon in there and so much philosophy. Qualitative and mixed method researchers, when they're writing a research proposal, also really get hung up on some of the philosophy, putting a lot of the philosophy behind interpretive research design, which is important to all of us, but it doesn't have a really critical place in a research proposal, because grant reviewers are not really looking for, you know, the philosophy or the straw man argument of why this is a better method than this. They really want you to be able to just explain to them what it is you'd like to do in order to address those aims, and to rationalize the choices that you've made with some method citations.
There's a thread that I keep hearing so far is people repositioning themselves,
Yes.
in a couple of ways, right? Not just the de-jargon, but what you were just saying, and even earlier, the philosophy piece, the focus on methods. It really is thinking about the mindset of the reviewer, knowing the audience, knowing the goal of what you're writing. All those things lead you to realize that, oh, it's not a test. I don't have to demonstrate that I'm the smartest methodologist in the world, or so ingrained in the philosophy. It's really a repositioning to focus on what the exercise is in this submission.
That's exactly right. Grantsmanship is a particular type of rhetorical device where your audience are a group of grant reviewers, and these grant reviewers are only interested in what it is that you can what you put before them in terms of what it is you want to do and how you want to go about doing it. They're not so much interested in you convincing them of a particular way of thinking about science. And it's hard, again, for early stage folks to do that, because most of what we read and the citations, the method citations that we read, do have a lot of that philosophy in it. And we enjoy that, and it helps us be passionate about our choice in using qualitative and mixed methods. And so we're really passionate about that. But when it comes to writing a research proposal, most of that has to be set aside. We have really tight space frameworks that I say this over and over again, every sentence has to buy its way into your proposal, meaning that it's got to be specifically directed towards giving some information to the reviewer that will help them understand what you want to do.
I love that expression, buy its way in. So
Yeah.
literally it's, people think, oh, the writing, but it's the writing, it's the reviewing. And that sentence alone is a great, when someone's saying, is this tight enough? Is it ready? Asking that question about each paragraph, each sentence in the paragraph, has this earned the right to be in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very valuable real estate. A grant proposal has very valuable real estate. And yes, while you'd like to put this quote in from a Sandalowski article on interpretive work, if it doesn't do anything to help the reviewer understand what it is you want to do, then it doesn't belong there.
Wonderful. So on the other side, the creative piece, as you were talking about that, I started having a different type of career person in mind. And I was wondering, when you're working with folks to try to, amp up the creativity and thinking about how do I kind of get more information on the topic of interest? Is that something for some folks who've been doing this for a while? Is that harder mid-career, later career? Like, do you find like getting people to understand what creativity means and implement it as they're designing and then expressing? How's that go in terms of people's
Yeah.
ability to pick up that wonderful tip?
Yeah. I think, Ray, I find that across stages of expertise, people struggle with that for differing reasons. The early stage person struggles with it because, they've learned in school that this is how you're supposed to, these are the types of designs, or these are the typologies, and you have to state it this way, and you have to even change your aim to fit that typology of mixed methods. Versus those that have been doing it for a while have tried and true ways of saying things and doing things and designing things. And yet the research problems of today might be different than they were 10 years ago and require a different constellation of moves that you're going to make to collect the data. Mixed methods, I just think like Pat Baisley's ideas about how you should be able to do whatever you can do meet the aim of that study. You're going to put together whatever pieces you have access to in order to meet the aim of that study, as opposed to following a set of rules for what belongs in that typology, that mixed methods typology. And it's hard for people to sort of pull away from that. Although I find that once you give them permission, you know, in these workshops, I often find that once you just say, well, why don't tell me a little bit more about why you want to use that particular typology of mixed methods, and they say, well, it's one that comes closest to fitting what I want to do, and then I'll say, well, tell me what it is exactly you want to do, and they'll do such a beautiful job of saying, well, what I'd really like to do is put this type of data in at this point and this type of data here, and then I'll say, well, just say that. That's beautiful what you just said. Tell the reviewer this is what you're going to do. This is how it's going to come together, and this is the product you'll get it. And once you say that, it's almost like you loosen the reins and you say, really, I can just sort of create my own type. Absolutely, you can absolutely create your own type, because your research problem and the aims that you know, the knowledge aims that you are committed to producing knowledge on are really unique. And so therefore they take design elements that are going to be pieced together in a unique way.
And that back and forth that you have with them, it's great to get people who are, you know, whether it's nervous or anxious or not as skilled with writing, to say it out loud and realize that the distance between what you're typing and what comes out of your mouth doesn't have to be that great. And that links both of these goals then, doesn't it? It links the de-jargon goal and the creativity at the same time.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Giving people permission to say what it is they want to do, and to write that in a way that is a convincing argument.
That's brilliant. So I want to check in, Jeff. You know, as you know, Sharron and I have been going back and forth. Yeah, let's hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, I just wanted to shift gears a little bit and kind of think about. I know in the course description you talked a little bit about budget and budget justification. How is that changing in today's world? The way that we even think about budgeting when we're putting these proposals together.
Yeah, wow, Jeff, that's a really good question, and one that we could talk about for a long time. I think the number one pitfall that happens for people that are, and in particular novice researchers putting together a qualitative or mixed method proposal, is they get taught about budgets and time based on the quantitative side of things, which in the quantitative side of things, you know, we foreground a lot of the data collection, a lot of the work, a lot of our time comes before as we're gathering the data, and very little time is necessary when we get to the analysis section, right? Because we already have our statistical analytic plan laid out. We have our statistician on our team. And so things move really quickly once you get to analysis and dissemination. You have to flip that script of the budget and the budget justification when it comes to qualitative and mixed methods proposals. And people forget about that, or they don't know to do that, and they end up not having enough time in their budget set aside for doing the sort of in-depth work that needs to be done in the analysis of a qualitative and mixed methods study. And a lot of that comes because we don't often know exactly what it is we're going to need to do with the data we get, and particularly in mixed methods. We can make plans, we can tell the reviewers what we think we're going to do, but when it comes down to it, the very best and most impactful studies, you've ended up doing something very different than what you said you were going to do. But because you haven't built enough time into your budget, meaning enough time for your effort as a researcher, enough time for your research assistants, your analysts, and all of your team that's going to help you with the analysis section, you can really be caught with your grants over for years and you're still analyzing the data on your own time. To me, that's the number one pitfall in budget writing, and that we don't plan in enough time for the really important intensive time we need to do the kind of analysis that comes with these research studies.
You were focusing early on how the course really is pragmatic, and listening to talk about time and thinking through. For people's information, I've sat through a couple of times, Sharron, as you presented this course, and it's always interesting to me to see how people respond and what they're picking up on. And one of the things with time is really not just think about how long it will take to do a proposal, but how much time to spend in different sections and things like that. But as you were just talking about budget, another thing that's a discovery for folks over the course of the 2 days is that they should not walk in with this approach of there are sections to a proposal. Let me independently think about each, produce each, and all these kinds of things. The fluidity of conversation through, the way that the different sections speak to each other, those are all things that make the reading and the processing easier for a reviewer, but it's a way for a reviewer to say, not only is this designed in a way that will get to the goal of the project, it seems like something can be done and this person is the person to do it. So that idea of kind of changes what you do when, and producing kind of each section in draft, looking at them in combinations, so that really part of that pragmatic isn't just here's how you reach each goal, it's how you're mindful of the story they tell. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ray. That it's such an iterative process, and you're telling a story. You know, like I said, a grant proposal is a rhetorical device. You're speaking to a group of reviewers and trying to convince them that A, this research problem is really important and it needs your funding to address it. And B, I have the right design that's going to allow me to address these research aims. And so you're telling a story, and that as you're writing that story, you have to go back and forth to say, oh, okay, you know, as I've been down here in the data collection section, I realized that it's going to allow me to actually do this with the aim. So then you want to go back and change the aim slightly to match. And so it's this iterative back and forth across. And actually, I'm working on a grant proposal right now, a mixed methods study with a team of folks that are used to doing more quantitative designs. And they're like, Sharron, just let us, I'll do this section, you do this section, you do this section. And I try to tell them, well, you know, it's really hard to do it that way. And how about I'll start with writing a draft all the way through. It'll be a very drafty draft, but I'll get my thoughts down all the way through. I'll tell the story, and then I'll give it to you, and you start editing the story and bring your expertise in here and here. And then I'll read the story and change the aims based on what you say we're able to do here. And so it's different than that sort of stepwise that we see with more quantitative proposals. That being said, I do sort of teach the course in stages of a proposal, because I do think that there are some really nice ways to express what it is you want to do for a reviewer in different sections. And the other piece that's really important to mixed methods is that researchers often think of mixed methods as just the moves that you make in analysis, right? Analysis or discussion, where either the two types of data or the 3 or 4 types of data are side by side throughout, and then in the discussion you bring them together, or you're integrating them in the analysis, or you're totally changing them, so they're transforming them so they make up a new type of data. But one of the things I really feature in this course is that mixed methods doesn't just happen at the data analysis point, that you can be mixing your methods all the way through, from design, through your theoretical framework. There's a way to mix methods, to your sampling, the types of samples that you're going to draw. You might have a probability sample mixed with you're going to draw a propulsive sample off your probability sample. That's mixed methods. So mixed methods doesn't just refer to analysis of different types of data. It refers to mixing of methods throughout, in order to, again, it always comes back to the aim. What am I willing to do in order to produce the findings that will address those aims?
Wonderful. I love this expression too, drafty draft. It brings me back to another word you gave, which is so important for folks who take these classes, is, giving permission, and giving permission for people to start at that kind of easy
Yes.
way to walk that in is so empowering. There are two other things we just wanted to get to, and then anything that you may want to bring in, or if Jeff has any other question. But one of the things that we think a lot about over the years of having done qualitative professional development now for, I guess we're coming up on we're in our 28th year. So I know 29. Wow. Anyway, things move fast, right? But a lot of folks, when they look at the agenda and the courses they can take, look specifically at the title and think, am I doing that now? But we've found over the years with repeat customers and things that they say, I took this course because the words proposals were in it, but wow, there was so much else I got. So we've been thinking a lot about benefits anyone who's doing qualitative research or can get. And in this case, even if they don't have a proposal on the agenda and at the ready, and just when you were talking earlier, um, the way you presented kind of building in people's ability to be more critical of their own work and getting better at that as you do more and more proposals, that's going to help whether you're writing a book, whether you're writing an article, doing a presentation. So I was just wondering if you can think of any other ways that somebody who isn't really, I have a proposal I got to get out the door, can benefit from the specific points. And then you're doing such an intricate navigation in your teaching. When I've seen you do this, is brilliant the way you are getting specific and doing specifics, but not at the cost of the holistic. And that so yeah, maybe that's it, but I'm just thinking aloud about how anybody, even if they're not doing a proposal, really can walk away with lots of tools and even just ways to think about their work.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. I love having a mix of students or attendees in these workshops, from people that have a specific proposal in mind, maybe they even have a first draft, all the way to those folks that are not planning to write a proposal in the next year, but they have, an area of research that they're focused on, and a particular problem statement that they're interested in. I think that what this course does for those folks that are more at the beginning of the continuum in terms of they don't have a proposal in mind is that it gives you ideas of, oh, wow, I use in the course, I use a lot of examples of research studies that have done things in very creative ways. And one of the things I notice in the course is people will say, oh, wow, I didn't think about that I could do that with this topic area that has kind of laid dormant for me for the last 10 years. But I was thinking that I could use that trajectory model that you just presented, trajectory of decision making. I could use that on this. And so for those folks, I think they get a lot out of the class in terms of giving them ideas of what they could do. And then all the way through the continuum to those that have a proposal, being able to help them think about really, I give a lot of examples of how do you say that? How do you let you might have a reviewer that is not going to really understand purposive sampling, and they're really going to be hung up on randomization. And how do I talk about my purposive sample as being informationally representative as opposed to statistically representative? And so anyway, I think people get different things out of the course, and it's fun having that range of folks in the class because they also learn from each other. We invite, Jeff helps me to invite participants in the course to send in a one-pager of something they might be working on, but not everybody has a one-pager. So maybe a third of the class will send something in, and I'll randomly select one to, with the permission of the individual, to talk about in class. And again, the other participants that haven't sent anything in really get a lot out of, oh, look what they're doing. And I could do that with this area, or I could do that with that area. And it might just really help you jumpstart your next research project.
That's really nice. There's oftentimes what we find with the range of courses we're offering in any given year, that some of them really fit comfortably together. And I can imagine someone taking your course, and then there's a course this summer on August 1st, Allison Hamilton and Kevin Sortout are co-teaching a class called Navigating Complex Decisions Across Your Qualitative Research Trajectory. So for folks who really envision qualitative and mixed methods as a part of their skill set to help them understand the topic that they're going to be living with for their career. Those two together would really work well. I was wondering, Jeff, if there's anything else you were thinking of. I have a kind of quick closing question, Sharron. And of course, if there's anything else that you thought would be helpful for folks to know, why don't we check in with Jeff first and then see if there's anything else you have before we close out?
Yeah, I just wanted to just reiterate what you were just talking about, Sharon, with how participants share their work in the class, and we do of course get participants from a range of disciplines, and I think it's so helpful for people even from different disciplines to hear how people are doing their work. So I just wanted to see if you could just talk for a little bit about that whole kind of transferring knowledge from one discipline to another as you hear what people are doing. That's something that's kind of a skill that a lot of people don't always pay attention to. So it's kind of cool that someone in public health is hearing what somebody else did in education, for example.
Yes. That again, that's another one of the pieces that I enjoy most about these workshops is having the range of disciplines that bring together diverse disciplinary frameworks, so ways of thinking about problems in health, and then also ways of articulating methods. And so what I like about that is it gives me lots of examples of how to pull people out of their jargon, right? And say, okay, you said it this way, and the person from education is saying it this way. What's an easy way to say it that bridges both of those and that we don't have to worry about the disciplinary focus, because most of these review panels will not be discipline specific. They will have a mix of scientists from different disciplines and instead are really just looking to be able to understand what it is you're doing. So I really love that. And we are doing a lot of that in the courses that I teach at Duke, where we are now getting folks in particular from some of the hard sciences like engineering that are wanting to learn more qualitative mixed methods designs. And it's fun having them come in and say, well, how can I say that? How can I have a sample of 22 and be able to say that I can make generalizations? And then you open up their mind to say, well, there's more than one kind of generalization that you can make. And you're used to the nomothetic generalization. So it's a lot of fun. I don't think these courses would work if you had all the exact same audience at the exact same level. I guess they would work, but they wouldn't be as creative. I'm able to use those moment-to-moment examples of people in the class to say, okay, look at how this individual said this. Let's think about a way that we could say it that would cross over disciplines or those sorts of things. So yeah, I think that's one of the things I love the most about these workshops through Research Talk.
It's beautiful. It really is, again, coming back to, as you started us off with the, de-jargon and creativity and all those kinds of things, yet another place where, and linking in the pragmatic too, where it's not just doing that, but seeing how you can do that. And yeah, and Jeff, you're bringing in this point that's so critical for us. A lot of our scholar instructors happen to be working now in fields where it's heavy health related and healthcare and things of that sort, but that doesn't mean anything. The translatability of that can apply to any discipline. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Can I tell a quick story, Ray, about that I learned when I was a novice writing one of my first big NIH grants? And I had a mentor that was really encouraging me to be creative in how I stated this really complex mixed method. It was a multiple case study design. So we were trying to, and it had to do with decision making in palliative care. And so we built this beautiful proposal that was really creative and was, told this story of what it is we wanted to do and what the product would be. And then we realized that we had to put it in front of the medical directors of the pediatric intensive care unit, the bone marrow transplant unit, and the neonatal intensive care unit. So these were physician scientists that were used to quantitative, large samples, the nomothetic generalization. I was so nervous to put this very creative proposal in front of them. And I thought they were going to say, how, you're proposing to study 30 cases. How can we draw any? And I was so nervous, but all three of those medical directors, after reading it, in some way, read it through and then pushed it back across the desk to me and said, this is the only way to do this. This is a complex problem that we've been dealing with in healthcare for a long time. What you've designed here is the only way to do it. And so from then on, I always thought, I want to write a proposal that a reviewer will say, this is the only way to do this. This is the only way to answer these aims that they want to answer. We've tried to do it in many other ways. What they have here is the only way to do it. So
Oh, that's such a powerful mantra for people to hold with them. It's great. So the final question we think about, and this fits very well for you because you happen to be teaching on a Thursday and a Friday. We have an expression that Kevin Swartout, who's one of our consultants for teachers, who we mentioned earlier, always says is he thinks about people in his class and imagines them kind of working and then taking the weekend off, and then wondering what will you do differently. And sometimes he ends his class asking us, what will you be doing differently on Monday? So if you kind of envision someone learning on Thursday and Friday, and then kind of Monday morning open up their computer and getting going, if you have a vision for maybe just one thing even that you would love to hear, hey, you know what, after I took those 2 days with you, Sharron, here's what I did differently when I sat at my computer Monday. What would that?
That's such a great question. I would love to hear folks say that I went back to my specific aims, my first draft of my specific aims that I had changed so many times to fit a particular design. I went back to those original specific aims and I designed the study that would allow me to address what I needed to do. If it gave them the freedom to really design that study that they wanted to do, as opposed to changing their aims to fit a particular typology or a particular design, that would make me so happy.
Oh, that's great. And it really is, it's so common that folks lose their way in the process of putting the proposal together. It's a great way for them to refine their location, their spot, and what
Yeah.
they're. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This is really, really helpful. I think even for folks who won't sit through the course, if they listen to our conversation, I think you've just given such wonderful, practical and principled advice. So thank you so much for your wisdom and your time.
Well, thank you guys for the opportunity to talk about qualitative and mixed methods proposals. It's an area I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that shows so strongly. Great. Thank you so much, Sharron. Thank you, Jeff.